podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Hi, this is Leo Laporte, and this is my Tech Guy podcast. This is our best of episode to end 2019. Some of the best moments from the Tech Guy radio show as heard on the premier networks all through the year. This is our show for Saturday, December 28th, 2019, episode 1656. Enjoy. What you're about to see is our best of clips taken from all of the Tech Guy shows, all 104 for the year 2019. And actually, it's going to look like just a new Tech Guy show. There's only one thing that's going to be a little weird. I'll have different clothes on for every segment. Enjoy our best of 2019.
Mike in LA is hearing that 5G is supposedly bad for your internal organs. He thinks it's phooey, as he says, but wants to know your opinion on that subject.
I think we're going to be talking a lot about that in the near future. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Kim. Hello, Mike. Leo Laporte, the Tech Guy.
Hi, Kim. Hi, Kim. Hi, Leo. How are you?
I am not nearly as cute as Kim, I'm sorry to say. Oh, well.
Well, she pretty much nailed it. Actually, I wanted to tell you this is the third time I've called you over the many years I've been listening, and I just wanted to say thank you. You've always been great.
Oh, thank you for calling. I really appreciate it.
Well, as she said, I was talking to my nephew this morning at breakfast, and he's a great guy, but he's one of these conspiracy guys. And, you know, everything's like a conspiracy, the government and all, what have you, and everything. Yeah. And so we were talking about 5G. And he said, "Oh, no, did you hear all about that?" And I said, "No, well, what's it about?"
Oh, who's he been listening to? Okay.
And so he goes, "Yeah, it penetrates your skin and does damage to your internal organs."
Oh, isn't that not? Isn't it? You know, microwave does. I mean, I wouldn't get inside a microwave oven. And in fact, The way microwave ovens were discovered is it was used in radar. And somebody cooked a can of beans in front of a radar. And in fact, that's why the early microwaves were called radar ranges. Oh. But that's a lot of energy. And you have to be pretty close because there's a rule that's really important about energy and energy dissipation. It weakens by the inverse of the square of the distance. So that's a big mathematical thing. But the bottom line on that is the energy coming off the antenna dissipates extremely rapidly by the inverse of the square. So it pretty much is gone by a few feet away. And that's why you can stand in front of your microwave with some minor shielding because it's not that dangerous. The waves that are used by 5G are even less risky. Ask your friend if he ever goes through those X-ray machines at the airport. I'm not talking about the metal detectors, but those ones that go around you. Those also use millimeter wave. And I remember when that technology first emerged, there were people saying, "Oh, people are afraid of stuff." And the real thing to remember is it's hard to prove the negative. Mm-hmm. In other words, if something's damaging, it's easier to prove it's damaging than it's not damaging. It's like, how do you, cell phones? Well, no one's proved they're damaging, but on the other hand, no one's proved they're not damaging. Because how do you prove that? Well, we kind of have. I mean, we've had cell phones for several decades. There's no increased instance of brain cancer or other kinds of cancer. In fact, there's evidence is reduced, but that's probably due to other things. So there's a guy who comes in here, visits us, local guy, who's trying to get Wi-Fi removed from the public schools because he says, our children, think of the children, the Wi-Fi is killing them. And it's very hard to prove it's not. And he could cite a lot of kind of sketchy studies, as I'm sure, your friend can. Who was you said your son?
My nephew.
Your nephew. I'm sure your nephew has, there's always, you can find stuff to say anything.
Sure.
But just so you know, 5G is millimeter wave technology, which is at a very, very high frequency, relatively low energy, and even if you stand next to the antenna, it won't cook a can of beans, and it certainly won't penetrate your skin. So
okay, so that was his big argument.
Yeah. In fact, one of the problems with 5G, one of the reasons it's not going to come as fast as they say, is it doesn't travel very far. And so when we put in 5G, when companies are putting in 5G, they can't just use the existing cell towers. They have to double the number or triple the number. They have to have a lot more cell towers to support 5G. That's one of the reasons I'm not too worried about 5G. One estimate I said that by 2025, 6 years from now, a full 30% of the nation will get 5G. What? In 6 years, 1/3? What?
Right.
So it's not going to, don't worry. I'd love to see 5G. I'm not worried about it. I keep my cell phone in my pocket next to my heart where it belongs.
I think you were talking about 5G just a week or two ago.
Yeah.
And I remember that's what made me think about giving you a call.
The promise of 5G, and by the way, don't fall for, and the cell phone companies do this every time, AT&T is labeling on your phone now that it's 5GE, which means, the E means not 5G. It means it's 4G, but we're going to call it 5GE. It's not really 5G. You're not going to see 5G except in very limited areas. And you have to buy a special phone. They are starting to sell those phones, but it's going to be a while.
Right.
When we get it, it will be faster. But speed isn't the primary benefit of 5G. It's something called low latency that everybody's excited about. That is, latency is a killer when you're using Skype or you're playing a video game. It's the delay between when you send a signal and when you get it back. You've seen that on satellite phones on the TV news where they say, Bob is in Budapest. Bob, what do you think?
Right.
Well, John, that's latency. And it's not good. It's not good for phone calls, not good for video games, not good for a lot of things. One of the things people want to do with 5G is wire autonomous vehicles so that they can communicate with each other. Latency would be really bad. If you all come to a stop sign at the same time, it would be a bad thing. So that's why people are excited about 5G. It means it's not so much that it's faster, but that we can do more with the 5G network. But don't get tell your nephew. Well, the problem is you can't convince these people because they say, "Well, I saw," because you can't prove the negative.
Right.
So all we can do, and I think it's prudent, is continue to watch studies on cell phone radiation, Wi-Fi radiation. For a long time, I was really worried about very low-frequency radiation from power plants, power lines. There seemed to be maybe some evidence that living near a power line wasn't a good thing. Well, that's not panned out. There are environmental hazards all around us, but I don't think 5G is one of them. I see you're sitting in front of a big Amazon Echo display. What going on? Is that for your car?
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about digital voice assistants in the car. I mean, you've been talking a lot about it, for the last couple of years since the Echo first came out, and we've got Google Assistant and various other attempts at this marketplace. And one of the things that over the last 15 years or so, increasingly we've seen cars equipped with voice recognition systems to try to to allow customers to drivers to use some of the functions in their car without having to actually touch the controls.
Yeah, that's what the idea with Ford Sync was. One of the first was keep your hands on the wheel, your eyes on the road, but you could still say, "Hey, Ford Sync, turn up the temperature," or find my favorite station.
Right, but as you've talked about in the past, that's always been kind of problematic because cars typically until now have had fairly weak processors in them, and it's also a hard environment to do voice recognition. I mean, it's you got a lot of ambient noise as you're driving down the road, and
also,
so it's always,
frankly, the time frame for car design is like 5 years from initiation to production, and that's a little slow for high tech stuff, right?
Right. So now what we're seeing is a shift away from strictly these embedded voice recognition systems that have a really limited vocabulary. They have very, very specific commands that you have to use to, these voice assistants that we are increasingly using at home in our various devices, from companies like Amazon and Google and Apple.
If you have Android Auto, you have Google in your car. If you have Apple's CarPlay, you have Siri in your car. And those work pretty well. I mean, right?
Right. And so what manufacturers are doing is they're taking advantage of the fact that increasingly almost all the new cars, and within the next couple of years, pretty much 100% of new cars available are going to have cellular connectivity in there. And so they're building in these hybrid voice recognition systems based on these voice assistants. So there's still an embedded component that's in the car as a backup when you don't have good connectivity. But then you've got this other much more robust, closer to natural language voice recognition system that's built in. So you got some companies like Ford that are offering that you can use if your phone is connected to the car. It'll actually use the app on your phone. Sorry, I'm supposed to say the other word.
Say the echo, not the A word.
The A word.
It's hard, I know.
On your phone. And then you can basically, any commands that you can do with an Echo device at home, you can do in the car. So, for example, you could tell it to adjust your thermostat at home. If you have a thermostat that's hooked up to your Echo at home, you could tell it to change the temperature as you're driving home.
That's like the Anchor sells that, the Rove Bolt.
Yeah, which
goes in your cigarette lighter.
Right, and so Toyota's got that, and got it built in.
So some cars have Echo built in.
Yeah. Well, they're starting to get it built in. Some are using it via an app that's running on your phone, like Ford and Toyota are doing. But they're moving towards built-in systems.
Who has built-in
next year?
Who is Echo like the default voice for?
Let's see. BMW, I think, is building it into some models now, and we're going to see more of them in the next over the next year or two. Next year, Volvo is going to be introducing a new electric car called the Polestar 2 that actually has a complete infotainment system that's built on Android Automotive that will have Google Assistant built right in. But even now, if you have Android Auto, which is something different from Android Automotive, you can use Google Assistant, in the car. Similarly, if you're using Apple CarPlay, you can use Siri. And some manufacturers, Mercedes-Benz has a new system called MBUX that has a system from Nuance that is a similar hybrid type of system where there's an embedded component and then there's a cloud-based component that gives you more natural language voice recognition to do all kinds of things. So you don't have to remember specific commands anymore.
That would be nice. Yeah. I have to say, I wonder if the car manufacturers are paying attention to consumer demand and saying, well, we could do our own like MBUX, but consumers know the brand for Google Assistant, for instance, and want that in their car.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. They're hearing the feedback from customers, and they're taking advantage of that connectivity, which they didn't have in the past.
That's right. Nowadays,
do a lot of this stuff in the cloud.
A lot of cars come with LTE built in or 3G built in.
Yeah, everything from GM now has LTE built into it. By the end of this year, all new Ford vehicles will have LTE built in.
Wow.
And within the next probably 3 years or so, pretty much 100% of new vehicles will have LTE built in.
The only negative on that is you now have a subscription fee to pay to the carrier.
Not necessarily. So what they're usually doing is they're giving you 5 years of basic services for free that's bundled into the price of the car.
Got it.
And then if you want more data, if you want to use it as a hotspot in your car to, let the kids play, on their connected devices in the back seat, then you can add it onto your plan for like $10 a month.
Interesting. Okay. So what do you? Well, I bet your Miata doesn't have any of this.
No, my Miata is totally analog and disconnected.
It barely has automatic windows.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite though in this category? Is there one that you like better than other? For instance, I'll give you an example. In our rental car in Hawaii, it supported CarPlay and Android Auto, but I thought CarPlay was, and I happen to have an iPhone and an Android phone, so I could play with both. Both were tethered; you have to plug in. But I thought Android Auto was a weak second compared to CarPlay. CarPlay really was nice.
I have to disagrey with you on that one.
You like Auto better?
I'm an Android Auto fan. Yeah, I like the interface better. I think it's a little more attractive looking, and I think it works really well.
All right, I'm going to have to give it another shot. In fact, my next car really, and usually when you get a car that sports one, it sports both, right?
Yeah, except for BMW, most of them support both.
What's that Audi support?
It has both Android Auto and CarPlay support.
I'm liking it more and more. Fred's on the line from Fraser Park, California. Hello, Fred.
Hi, Leo. How you doing?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Why does Apple hate the blind?
You know, Apple is notorious. I'm surprised to hear you say that. They're famous for their accessibility. What device are you having trouble with?
This will take a little background.
Okay.
I'm a college teacher. I started teaching in '76. My field is visual arts, specifically photography, not just taking pictures of your puppies, scientific, technical, the whole thing.
Nice.
And one of the things that happened in '76 when I started teaching, my vision was totally wiped out.
Ugh.
It was part of a credentialing process. I know that sounds weird. Well, they wanted me to be an executive at the college. They put me through a meat grinder. The last 2 or 3 years, my vision has just been completely shot.
I'm so sorry. Gosh, that must really, for somebody in the visual arts, that's got to hurt.
No, not really. It's been a learning experience. I like to study stuff. And no matter what's going on, I want to learn about what I'm dealing with. And what I found was that telephones, consumer electronics, and appliances are absolutely user-unfriendly, not just for people with visual problems, but also a lot of other problems. If you have dexterity problems with touch and things like that. And I've gone so far as to really study it. I mean, pretty emphatically.
Let me just ask you, have you try using the accessibility features on an iPhone, like VoiceOver?
All that stuff is worthless.
Okay, because I know a great number of blind users. Now, admittedly, a touch screen is going to be less useful, but I know a great number of blind users who do, in fact, use the iPhone and love the iPhone because of this VoiceOver capability. It will speak all the buttons. It'll let you know where your fingers are, what you're touching. Admittedly, a touch screen is a problem. But I honestly think that Apple's doing as well as anybody in this regard. Maybe they need to do a better job. I'll grant you that. I have no standing to talk about this because I'm sighted. In fact, I've often told people I really can't do fair coverage of accessibility hardware and software because I can peek, and it just really gives you a completely different experience of this. But I have to say, I have talked to a number of people. In fact, I'm sure somebody will call because we have a lot of blind listeners who say, no, I'm really able to use not just the iPhone with Apple's accessibility technologies, but even a Mac or a Windows machine with sometimes third-party programs like JAWS, which is a screen reader for Windows, sometimes the built-in technologies like the Zoom capabilities. I have to say, voice might be your best friend in the long run. I do know many people with varying abilities who are able to use Amazon's Echo, for instance, to make phone calls using just their voice. So I think that's going to be, in the long term, a hope for people. I feel your pain. I feel like Apple and Microsoft are. I've even spoken to a person at Microsoft who's in charge of accessibility. She gets to work across all product lines and go into any product division and say, guys, you're not doing a good job. You could do a better job. Here's where we should fix this. So these companies know this is important. I think that's very important. They're trying to add features like Siri voice styling, like VoiceOver, Zoom text, and other features that make it easier for people with impaired vision. You know, I mean, if you're deaf, it's also hard to use. Google just announced an amazing technology that duplicates the old TTY services that phone companies offered, but with artificial intelligence so that you can look at a video. This was a remarkable demonstration at Google I/O, and have the captioning on. So somebody who is deaf or hard of hearing can actually start to get involved in life in new and unique ways. So I do feel like there are solutions. I admit maybe we took a step backward initially with the touch screens, but that's the way of the world, and I do think that these companies care a lot. Julian in Los Angeles. Hi, Julian.
Hey, Leo, how's it going?
It's going great.
All right, well, I am blind. I'm also an assistive technology trainer, and I heard your last call, and I feel really bad for that guy because clearly he is not aware of the power of the accessibility that's built into these modern mobile devices. So
I also, to be fair to him, remember, he's recently gone blind.
Yeah.
And I think and this is why people need people like you, Julian, because it's one thing if you're like Stevie Wonder, blind from birth, and you get the support at school and so forth. You learn the skills. You have, your brain is more mobile. You can learn those skills, and you can become quite adept. But if you're starting from zero as an adult, that's got to be really challenging, really hard.
It is, but it's not impossible. I've taught newly blinded people, including veterans, and I've taught them how to use the iPhone, and they can use it. It's just a matter of your brain has to retrain those cells that used to power the eyes to do other things. They need to work, and they learn to do other things. They don't just sit there because you lose your vision.
No, the brain is amazingly plastic. It will use that vision portion of the brain for other things. It's kind of remarkable. Where could he go? How could somebody get that kind of help?
Well, there's lots of places. He could find a trainer like me, and I'll give myself a cheap, shameless plug if that's okay.
Please do. Don't give a phone number if you have a website or an email.
Yeah, well, I have a website. My phone number's on there. It's a Google Voice business number, so people can call it anytime. I don't care. My website is www.techjv.com. That's www.techj as in John, V as in Victor.com. And there I've got lots of resources, including a page that I maintain of some of the apps that I find most helpful.
In fact, I see you have a presentation about using the iPhone 7. So that's awesome.
It's an older thing, but I keep it around because it kind of gives people an idea of how I work. So
awesome.
There's lots of stuff. So there's that. There are places you can go to. The place that I think you and Big Pee Wee were talking about, referring to Stevie Wonder, I think it's called Wayfinder Industries. They're over in Los Angeles.
Yeah, Stevie's a big supporter. Pee-wee tells me, Damon tells me, big supporter of him. Yeah.
So there's that. There's companies like Sweetman Systems out of the valley here. There's A.T. Crater in Orange County. There's lots of companies that do this. There are companies you can go to. National Braille Press has publications. One of them is called Getting Started with the iPhone, and it's written by a blind person.
Do the traditional organizations like Lighthouse for the Blind or the Braille Institute, do they also understand these new technologies and assistive technologies?
Oh, yes, and Braille Institute has something that they have they call a connection point, and it's a place you can go into and you can get matched up with somebody to teach you at least the basics and get you started. So there's lots of stuff. There's a wonderful website called applevis.com, applevis.com. And it's all about getting started with Apple products. In fact, they have sections there with tutorials specifically to help people who are new to this.
That's fantastic.
So there's a lot of stuff out there. It's doable. And he was talking about the problems with putting bumps on the phone with touchscreens.
Yep.
There's actually companies that make overlays that have dots, because one nice thing about Apple is that everything's consistent in iOS. So there are dots that line up with certain buttons. They even have overlays that line up with all the letters on the keyboard, so you can slide your finger around if that helps you.
Cool.
So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there, and I just felt really bad for that guy, and I felt that he should know about this because he sounded frustrated. And the iPhone's a very powerful tool. It will give him all kinds of abilities that he probably never thought he'd be able to have again once he lost his vision, and it's not the case.
I can only imagine how hard it must be to lose your sight, especially as a visual artist, and especially as an adult. But that's good news that there's hope, and it's just going to take a little work, a little research, and I think a good place to start is your page, Julian, techjv.com. I'm so glad you called in to talk about it, because I think I've talked to you before. I know I've talked to many people before who have sung the praises.
We've actually we've met. I've been to your Brick House studios before, back in, I think, 2016.
Nice. Oh, great. Well, I'm glad we met. And you're in the L.A. area, but all over the country there are places like this. I think it's...
Oh, yeah, definitely. And you know what? Another tip, if he's in an area and he's not familiar with the people, there are chapters of the National Federation of the Blind and the American Council of the Blind, and you look them up and call those chapters up and say, hey, do you guys have a tech guru who knows how to teach this stuff? Maybe I could take him to lunch, or maybe he does this for a living. Yep. So there's lots of ways you can get information.
There'll be resources for him. The website for the dots, I think, is speeddots.com. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Thanks to Echo Steven in our chat room. He says, we put those on my uncle's phone, speeddots.com. It's time once again for the man, the myth, the legend, Santa Claus in modern clothes. It's Scott Wilkinson, our home theater geek, Listen to that ho ho ho.
That's coming up.
Did you have a good fast? Did you have a good Yom Kippur?
Yes.
Good. Play the shofar for everybody.
I blew the shofar, and I didn't beat my record of the longest blast, but I did do 35 seconds, which wasn't too bad.
Long enough. People start getting restive after about 20, I'm sure.
Well, not the way I do it.
Oh, you jazz it up a little bluesy, huh?
Well, no. I just continue the crescendo. It gets louder and louder and louder and louder.
Wow, that would make me more and more nervous.
What I did see this week, though, was Gemini Man.
All right, I knew you were going to go see that. This is interesting for a couple of reasons. Ang Lee, the director, shot it at a high frame rate.
Yep.
It features, and it's also interesting because it features Will Smith, and at his current age, but also there is enough footage of Will Smith as a young man, 20-year-old man, that they could simulate the young Will Smith. It wasn't CGI. Right. It wasn't special effects. It was footage that they reused.
Well, essentially, they reused the footage to map his younger face.
Oh, that's right. They'd still have to update it to be high frame rate and all of that stuff.
Right, yeah. Exactly. And that, those two things were really why I went to see it. I had read a few early reviews that said, it wasn't that good a movie. And I'll have to verify that now. Yes, it's not that good a movie. It's, the script is not really great.
We should mention that you liked Billy Swan.
I did.
Yeah, Billy Lynn.
I'm an Ang Lee fan.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm in the minority when I say I thought Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk was a good movie.
Yeah.
Very few people agree with me, but I'll stand my ground.
Yeah.
But the point is that both Billy Lynn and Gemini Man, the new movie, were shot at 120 frames a second, 5 times the normal movie frame rate. And what that does is it gives motion, it makes motion, anything in motion, much clearer, much sharper. And I like that look. Some people don't. A lot of people don't. They say, it doesn't look like a movie. It doesn't look like cinema. But that's, I think, because we have 100 years of looking at movies that were shot at 24 frames per second. And so people tend to like that, what they call a quote unquote dreamy look, which to me just looks fuzzy and out of, and blurry when things are moving around. So the other thing Ang Lee did here, as with Billy Lynn, was to shoot it natively in 3D. So he had twin cameras set up on rigs to actually shoot in 3D at 120 frames a second at 4K resolution. I mean, that's a massive amount of data that they're having to deal with.
Now, you couldn't possibly have seen it in a theater that showed it at 120 frames per second.
In fact, I did.
Oh.
But and you've struck upon the strange thing about this movie, that he shot it at 120 frames a second, 4K resolution, 3D, but there are no theaters in the U.S. that can show it like that. None. Instead, you have to choose. If you want to see it at high frame rate, you can. You can see it at 120 frames per second in 14, I think, different Dolby cinemas, but the spatial resolution is not 4K. It's been down-res to 2K. The projectors that we have currently installed in theaters can't do both. That's right.
But so where did you see? So you saw it 4K 120.
No, I saw it in 2K.
You didn't see 4K. So
there's no place.
A theoretical version of this film that no one can see.
Well, they showed it at the premiere at the TCL IMAX Theater, TCL Chinese IMAX Theater.
The old Grauman Theater.
Right. But they had to bring in special projectors to do it. And that was only for the premiere. So basically you have your choice. If you want to go see this movie in high frame rate, and I do recommend that if you go see it, you do it in high frame rate. You can do it at 120 frames per second at 2K in Dolby cinemas, and there are 14 around the country that are showing it in that way. Or you can see it in 4K, the full spatial resolution, but only quote unquote 60 frames per second. And that's happening mostly in IMAX laser theaters that have IMAX laser illuminated projectors. I chose to go see, fortunately, there are theaters in both cases near me. I went to go see it in a Dolby Cinema because I was more interested in the temporal resolution, that is the 120 frames per second, than I was in the spatial resolution, which is the 2K or 4K. And the image quality I thought was just stunning. I mean, I was blown away at how clean and crisp and clear. And there's a lot of motion going on in this movie. It's basically an action movie. It's really an excuse for explosions and gunfire. And as I said, the movie itself, not so great. Dialogue, not so great. Very superficial. Nothing interesting really in the movie at all. But one review I read said that it's basically a long technology demo. That Ang Lee spent all his time on the technology aspect of it, the high frame rate, the 3D, and so on. And he spent almost no time on the story.
I've read some critics say it's a shame Ang Lee wants to squander what could be a great film career. Running down this rabbit hole of technology.
You know, and he did make some great movies. Life of Pi is one of my favorite movies.
Which
of all
also,
time.
By the way, heavily technology driven. It was a lot of CGI, 3D CGI.
And a lot of CGI. That's right. He did Brokeback Mountain. He did Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, or Crouching Dragon, Hidden Tiger, whatever that one was.
A lot of wire work in that one. So he's always liked kind of doing special
experimental
effects.
stuff. And I really appreciate and admire him for that, for being willing to go out on the edge and really pushing the technology and the filmmaking to see what he can do. Now, I happen to think Billy Lynn was actually a good movie. I do not think Gemini Man is a good movie. So if you're looking for a good movie, that's not it. But if you want to see what the potential is for digital cinematography, it's beautiful. I mean, it's so gorgeous that I was mesmerized.
That was the problem I had with Billy Lynn, was it was very mundane. It wasn't beautiful and gorgeous. It was like the real world, like you were sitting in a cab.
Right.
With the people. So this is maybe another way to look at it, which is, well, let's use all this technology to give you great images. So go not for the story, go for the images. All right. Okay.
Yeah. I'm afraid that.
Are we going to see more of these? Is Cameron going to do this too? I mean,
Cameron is certainly going to do this with the Avatar. James Cameron is going to do this with I think there are 4 Avatar sequels still in the works, and that movie was 10 years ago. So I'm not quite sure what's taking so long.
Anybody who's ever had a computer knows these things never go well. And it's Risa in Orange County, California. Hi, Risa.
Hi, Leo. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I keep telling myself I want to go dark, and what does that mean? I want to get off of all electronics.
I don't blame you. Yeah.
I'm just over all of it, and I want to go old school, landline. I'm in the market for a low-end laptop, and I was listening to you recommend the Chromebook. Yeah,
for somebody who wants to go dark, a Chromebook probably is a good choice, as long as you don't mind that it's from Google. You know, it kind of depends on why you're going dark.
Well, let me start at the beginning. I'm probably not going to make any sense here, but I'm going to try.
No, that's fine.
Initially, I'd like to get rid of my cable bill.
Okay.
Now.
So you don't really want to go dark because you're going to you're going to watch Netflix and stuff like that, right?
Right. And I have 2 granddaughters that I'd like to talk to, and they live on the East Coast.
So you need to have Skype or FaceTime or something like that. Okay.
Right. And I have an Apple phone. I mean, I've had an iPhone for a long time. So I just kind of came out of the corporate world, and I never got a laptop once I left corporate. I'm still working, but I don't need a laptop anymore.
So for all the things you still want to do, you do need internet access.
Right. And so
what you want to do is cut the cord, is what we call it.
Yes.
Which means you just want to sever the relationship with your cable company. Unfortunately, in most areas, your cable company still has the fastest internet access. So in most cases, people stop paying for TV, but they still have a relationship with the cable company, because that's how they're getting their internet. But you can investigate other.
If you need a landline and internet, what do you recommend? I think the gal that I spoke to before you, she had recommended Sonic.
Well, it depends what's available in your neck of the woods. I don't know if Sonic is in Orange County. They're probably not. So that's one thing to investigate, is alternate internet service providers. Now, honestly, who's the phone company in your neck of the woods? Is it Frontier or AT&T?
I think it's both.
Okay. Frontier took over from Spectrum, which was the old cable company. So I think Frontier's probably your cable company now. But so there's a difference between the phone.
Cable is actually through Spectrum.
It's still Spectrum. Yeah, Spectrum sold off some and didn't sell off some. So you have Spectrum, you have AT&T. There's a difference. The cable company can offer phone service, sort of. It will feel just like...
I've been paying for that for 2 years, but I don't use it.
Yeah, it feels like phone service because you got a phone, but it's really coming in over the cable line. It's actually internet phone service.
Right.
So it's not really real phone service. And one of the advantages, you and I remember the good old days of, Ma Bell. One of the advantages of the old school phone service was you didn't need electricity to use it. You do need electricity to use your Spectrum phone. If the power goes out, unless it's battery backed up, and a lot of times they do put a battery somewhere in the garage, but they don't maintain it. And after a couple of years, it may not even work anymore. They don't care. But in the old days, Ma Bell was heavily regulated. And one of the chief concerns of government regulators is that it be a reliable communication system, even in emergencies, even if the power was out, even if it was a serious storm, that you would be able to reach emergency services. So they made all sorts of requirements. And one of the requirements is that phone works without electricity. It's powered from the central office.
And that's what I'm after.
That's what you should get. And that will not ever come from a cable company or an internet service provider. That will come from Ma Bell, whoever Ma Bell is in your area. Every area has an incumbent local carrier, an ILEC. It's probably AT&T in your area, but I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah. If that name rings a bell, that's probably who it is. So you would get, and I would just get Lifeline service. Get the cheapest service. It'd be $20 a month because you're not going to make phone calls on it even. It's there in an emergency. It's there just, as a backup. So you want the cheapest one you can get.
Personally, Leo, have an old-fashioned landline?
I do, only because our alarm company required it.
Okay.
I have no use for it, and I've never made a call on it. In fact, I don't think I can make outbound calls on it. I think I got such a cheap service that, you can make outbound local calls. So otherwise, the burglar alarm wouldn't work. And of course, you can always call 911 on these things. So yeah, I do.
Sure.
I do. And that's the point, is that you can reach 911.
So back to the initial, getting rid of cable. When you get rid of that, I'm getting rid of my internet phone, I'm getting rid of internet, and I'm getting rid of this.
Right.
All these.
So now you're going to want to go out and find an alternate internet service provider. Honestly, and this isn't my preference, it's just the way it worked out in this country, because these companies are so rich and powerful. They were able to essentially, in my opinion, bribe and strong-arm the FCC into letting them establish monopolies. So in most areas of the country, the fastest internet service is the cable company. They have the biggest pipe. In some areas, and you may be lucky, Orange County is likely to be lucky, there are fiber providers as well. That's what Sonic is. But it's expensive. They have to dig trenches and put in glass fiber optics lines. It was, Sonic is a very affordable service, but it's expensive for them to put it in. They only charge $40 a month for 1 gigabit per second downloads, which is really, really fast. Faster than your cable company. So that's worth an investigation. I don't think Sonic's in Orange County, unfortunately, but you certainly could go somewhere like, I would recommend broadbandreports.com. You enter in your zip code, and it will tell you what providers are available to you. Broadbandreports.com. If Broadband Reports says you can get a fiber system, that would be worth looking into. It often is less expensive. But it's just hit or miss in the entire country. Only a few areas are lucky enough to have that as an option.
So at this point, then I get a landline. I've obviously got to get a phone and find somebody that I can get that.
AT&T. Yep.
Okay, and then I'm going to look into internet service. So I check.
You gotta have the internet service, because then otherwise you can't call your kids across the country, right? That's
right.
You're going to use FaceTime to do that. You need that.
Okay. Now, TV and laptop. I know it's a smart TV is what I need. I have TVs, but I don't think they're smart TVs.
Yeah, those will be. So a smart TV merely means it's connected to the internet. And honestly, you don't need a smart TV. You just need a streaming box. My recommendation is Roku, ROKU. It connects to the internet and then outputs TV.
Is that a one-time charge for Roku?
Yep. The Roku is cheap. It's $100. Then, depending on what channels you want. So Netflix is $11 a month. HBO is $15 a month. You can buy a la carte the channels you want. There are free channels also.
So before you know it, you're back up to your cable bill.
Oh yeah, you're not going to save any money. If you're doing this is the dirty little secret of cord cutting. The cable companies saw this coming a mile off. So they slowly racked up the price of internet to the point where they're going to make the same amount of money. Okay. So you're not sticking it to the man exactly, especially if you get internet from the man. All you're doing is, kind of jockeying around. You don't save money. No, you don't.
Okay.
But you get the feeling of power. This is the unfortunate truth of this. If you're careful, Netflix gives you a lot of entertainment for $11, and you say, I'm going to just do that. Or you buy YouTube TV, $50 a month, and that gives you your local channels and a few premium channels. You do something like that. Yeah, but you're right. It's going to end up costing you pretty much what your cable costs. Congratulations!
Thank you.
What's your baby's name? You can tell us now.
Olivia Grace.
Oh, my God. I love that name.
Oh, good.
Oh, Olivia Grace.
I told my dad, he's like, that's a good name, I guess.
Yeah, parents never.
He wanted me to name him after my mom. After my mom.
Oh yeah. Well, I understand that, but you know what? You got a wife, and she's got concerns.
Well,
and she gave birth, so she gets to choose.
Well, we also named our son after my mom. Her maiden name's his middle name.
Okay, fine. So we wanted to name Abby Clara, but we made the mistake of telling my mom. And she says,
a mistake.
Big mistake. You wouldn't tell anybody, and I admire you for that. Except you told your dad, big mistake. But anyway, she said, that reminds me of Clarabelle the Clown. And that was it. That was it.
Is that a cow? Is Clarabelle the cow?
Something like that on Howdy Doody. Anyway, that was it. We couldn't name her Clara.
Oh, my goodness.
So, Olivia Grace. And how is Natalie?
They're doing all right. It was a little touch and go. She came 3.5 weeks early. I was in Las Vegas. And I got a text. I was in the middle of a meeting. And she's like, my doctor said go to the hospital. And I was like, what? I just got up, got on the phone. I called. I said I need to get on the next flight. It was in an hour and 15 minutes. I ran downstairs, got in an Uber, was at the airport in 8 minutes.
I love Vegas for that.
And my Uber driver was amazing. Oh. He did not dilly-dally. And
did you tell him? You said, I got a baby on the way. You get me to the airport.
Yeah, I said my wife's on her way to the hospital. And then when I said I have a baby on the way, he said I was hoping for that.
Oh.
And, It was amazing. And I just ran.
Did
and went
you
right
get there in
the
time for the delivery?
I sure did. Yeah, I got there plenty of time. But it was. I wrote all about it.
3.5 weeks is premature.
I'll tweet it.
It's on the website. 3.5 weeks is premature, but not horribly premature, right? She could breathe and everything, right?
Well, Natalie developed preeclampsia. That was a problem. And so they're more worried about her. Her blood pressure was spiking.
Yeah.
Her blood sugars were low. She had gestational diabetes just during the pregnancy.
Yep.
And
it's very common.
I'm just tweeting this. But once they give birth, it both goes away normally. Yeah. Although Natalie originally had postpartum preeclampsia, which is a whole other thing, and that's crazy. But anyway, I just sent you the stories. You can read it sometime. And it was harrowing, but I made it, and it was amazing. And I'm a lucky man. I have a son and a daughter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Here's the conference.
Yeah.
Here's you running the hell out of there.
Yeah.
I'm glad they put a big sign that says labor and delivery. You wouldn't want to. Want to think, oh, I'm going to have an appendicitis.
Yeah, she went to Cedars Sinai, and every time.
Good hospital.
Yeah.
That's a good-looking nurse you got there. Oh, no, that's you. Your eyes are kind of wide, Johnny. You a little nervous?
I'm scared as hell.
A little nervous? A little wide awake?
Very. So scared.
Oh, Natalie, congratulations. Oh, did they have to put her in an incubator? No.
Yeah, that was a problem. Yes.
Oh.
So it was a little anticlimactic as I wrote because
you
the first
don't get
24
to hold
hours,
her. Yeah.
we didn't get to hold her for 24 hours.
So she did have a little trouble breathing.
She did.
But that cleared up quickly.
Yep. Within 24 hours, she was off the oxygen.
Oh, I'm so happy. Oh, look at that little baby Olivia Grace. Oh, and Natalie looks great. Oh, she looks way too good for somebody who just gave birth. That's just not right. Oh, my God. I love the little bars. It must be time to say hello to Chris Marquardt, our photo guy. Chris is a brilliant photographer who leads wonderful photo workshops all over the world. You can find those at discoverthetopfloor.com. He hosts a number of podcasts, including, I think, what must now be the oldest photography podcast of them all, Tips from the Top Floor. And in fact, that's where I met Chris for the first time, is at a very early podcast expo, way back when podcasting was young. Hello, Chris. I mentioned
so long ago.
So long ago. So what do you want to talk about today?
Well, actually, it kind of slots into what you talked about earlier in terms of programming. Like, how do you learn this thing? And there are so many things in photography that make it so simple these days. And a lot of things add convenience to your photography, to the entire workflow. There's a lot of instant gratifications. If you look at the whole digital photography, I mean, just the bare fact that you, and us old people, we know that, just the bare fact that you can take a photo and look at it right on the display there.
Mind-boggling.
Instant review. I mean, that sped up learning so much that people have really become a lot more productive in photography. I mean, this is just common knowledge. Most people today haven't even shot a roll of film.
In the old days, you would buy film, you would take a picture, and depending on whether you did it yourself, you'd have to wait at least a day to see what the picture looked like. And if you sent it into photo processing lab, it could take weeks before you'd see the image.
Right. Now we have instant sharing that results in instant favs, right? We give a little dose of dopamine when you share something straight from the camera onto your social media. The artificial intelligence is starting to become a part of it with instant sorting of your photos. That's already being done for you on the platforms.
So cool what
instant
Google Photos
classification, instant post-production. I mean, there's automatic beautification of your photos. There's automatic selection. If you're in the Apple ecosystem, it will pick the best photos of certain times in the past and create moments for you and memories for you. So that whole thing there's so much being done for you that my question now is, what is this good for you, or isn't this is not good for you? And I think it mainly has to do with what is your goal with photography. This is analog to what we were talking about. You can go to codeacademy.org, learn how to program in a couple of weeks, maybe even get a job, but have you really learned how to program? That is the question. I mean, again, what's the goal with photography? Is it just to create memories? Is it to capture things so you can go back to them later? I
have to say, a little learning in photography goes a long way. I mean, people, when they're first doing snapshots, they're cutting the heads off of people, or they're getting too far back. There's some basic mistakes you can fix right away. They're taking pictures into the sun.
So I would argue, if your goal is to become a better photographer, if that is your primary goal, then I would say all those automated systems, all that AI that will take a lot of work off your hands is maybe not as much of a good idea, because it's like with everything. If you want to become better at something, you have to engage with it. You have to make it part of your life. And anyone who's serious about this, I'm not talking about someone taking snapshots, totally fine to use all these, but it really extends beyond the act of just taking the photo. Photography is way more than just pressing the shutter button.
Yeah, it's adding an Instagram filter. That's all it takes.
That could be part of it. I mean, instead, photography is spans an entire workflow. I mean, it's the taking of the photo, it's the sorting of the photo, it's the rating, the tagging. It's pretty much about surrounding yourself with your photos, spending time with them, because that's how you learn, engaging in the process. If you want to become a better photographer, if that's your goal, then pretty much at anything, by the way, you have to engage with the process.
It's a lifelong learning thing, I think. I mean, I have so much to learn still.
Oh, everyone, I think, has. Yeah. And there's so many things. I mean, the programming is one thing. If you're a trumpet player, you better practice the trumpet, right?
Because when you're learning a language, and your native language is German, you speak English better than I do, so I know you had to learn it. When you're learning an instrument, in both cases, initially can be very frustrating.
Oh yeah, but you have to.
You're terrible at first.
Plow through. You will be terrible, and the big problem is that you know that you're terrible in the beginning.
The worst. Same thing with radio.
You know,
you're so bad for the first 10 years, or for me, 20.
I think Ira Glass said it really well in the beginning. You have good taste. You know what is good, but you can't do it because you're not good enough. But you have to plow through it. You have to put some of the work in, and you have to engage with the whole thing. And then you become a better trumpet player, a better programmer, or a better photographer. And at one point, it becomes a really good progress curve. It just takes off. But you have to just put some effort in and engage with the process. Don't let things be done for you, because that is not going to further your photography.
So that's interesting. I think
there you have it.
I think you want to get to that point where you have that breakthrough. Know that it's going to be painful, and then the breakthrough kind of rewards you a little bit.
But you can chip away at it like a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
It's not painful all the time. It's just painful at little parts of it, you know.
Yeah. And Gary in Costa Mesa, California. Hello, Gary.
Happy Sunday, Leo.
Happy Sunday.
I'm Gary in Costa Mesa.
Happy December, believe it or not.
It sure is.
Wow.
I quit saying this is Gary because the voice recognition always makes it sound like my name is Scary. But I also, first step here is to wish you belated happy birthday.
Thank you.
Even though you don't like to have your birthday recognized. You can't help it. It happens anyway. So
happens no matter what. Exactly. I shouldn't make a big deal about it, but you know, when you get to a certain age, you don't really want to acknowledge it. That's the real problem.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I'm older than you are, though. Doesn't bother me.
Doesn't bother you?
Anyway.
Yeah, I guess it's better than the alternative, is what my wife says.
Yeah, that's right. If I may make a comment on Chris's talk there.
Yeah.
I was talking to Kim when he was talking about sorting the photos.
Yes.
So I missed what that was. Would you be able to
so I can give you a little thumbnail of it, because I just use it. And I was it started because I was thanking him. You know, we came back from a 3-week trip. I took more than 1,000 photos, actually closer to 3,000 photos. And generally when I get back from a trip like that, it's fun to take the pictures and I like to look at them, but I don't like going through them and picking the winners and then getting rid of the losers. Now that's pretty easy to do
here too.
Yeah, we all have this. It's pretty easy to do when something's just bad, like out of focus, or it's a picture of your thumb because you had your finger on the lens. But there's still plenty of maybe 1,000 photos where, and this is what's hard for me, I look at them and I go, that could actually be a good photo. I don't know. Is it good? I don't know. I asked a professional once, a very good photographer I knew who worked at National Geographic, and he said, I wait for it to kick me in the gut. He said, I know it's a good photo if I go, oh. And so but now he's a really good photographer. My photos aren't that good. So I don't often get that feeling of, wow, oh, ooh. But I know what he was saying. So what Chris's method is, and you can, by the way, download his free ebook, and we'll put the link in the show notes at techguylabs.com, but it's 1hour1000pics.com, and the numbers are numbers, not spelled out. So 1hour1000pics.com. And he's got an ebook, he's got video. He uses Lightroom, but any program will work. In fact, it works great with Apple's Photos. It works great with Google Photos. But the idea is you need something that you can load up all your pictures in, and this is the key, and move quickly between them while indicating as you move a rating. Now, I modified his process slightly, but these are the ratings I gave. 0 means it's a reject. It's gone. It's out. It's out of focus. Or it's just I don't see how I can make that be interesting, whatever. 1, though, is a pretty low bar. If I rank a photo with 1 star, that means, yeah, I'm going to save it because it's our photo album. And I'm going to see it in the photo frames. I can see it when I look at Google Photos or Apple Photos. No one else will want to see this. I wouldn't show it to relatives even. It's not that great, but I want it because it's a historic record. It's a memory for me. If I give it 2 stars, now I think it's good enough to share in public. It's probably okay. In my case, I put it on Flickr. You might say it's okay for Instagram or Facebook. And then 3 stars, and that's as high as I go. 3 stars means this. I think this is that. That's a great photo. I'm gonna keep. That's one I want to not only keep, but I might want to spend some time editing, popping up the color a little bit, making sure the white balance is correct. Spend some time making it look better. That's a 3. So 0 through 3 stars, and you do it pretty quick. This is the key. He says 1 hour for 1,000 pictures. I'm not that fast, but pretty quickly. And the idea, if you can find a program that'll do this, where you rank it and it moves to the next one, rank it and moves to the next one, that's the best way to do it. I use a program on the Mac, it's available on Windows too, called Fast Raw Viewer, that's very quick at this and very quick at rating. And furthermore, I can easily use it to then import it into my editing program of choice. So Fast Raw Viewer is what I use. He recommends Lightroom. It works fine with Lightroom. My problem with Lightroom is it's a little slow, and I need to be fast, but it's the same idea. Rank it, move on, rank it, move on, rank it, move on. Now, rejects, the zeros, I don't throw away right away. I put them in a folder. I don't want to have them in Apple Photos or Google Photos because I'll see them in my slideshow or when I'm browsing around, and they're just not that good. So I put those aside, maybe not throw them out for a while just because they're my babies and I don't want to throw them out. The ones I immediately post, to Flickr or Instagram or whatever. The 2s and 3s I want to work on with Lightroom or whatever photo editing program you like. Lately, I like Skylum. Makes a couple of programs I really like for Mac and Windows called Luminar and Aurora, which is an HDR program. That's Skylum. So I've been using those. And so then those I will clean up. And then what I'm happy about is I was able to pare 1,000 more photos down to about 24 that I really like. I'm thinking you want a few enough that you could put it in a book, because that's the best thing to do. Remember, we don't do that anymore. Remember when you get prints, you'd put them in a photo album. So that's what you're looking for. What are the ones you're willing to put those little corners on the page, glue them down, and put the photo in there? Those are good enough to save.
Or the plastic pages with the slots.
You slide them in, yeah.
You slide them in.
Nowadays, I don't do that anymore. But almost all all the programs have a way to order photo books, or you can go to Shutterfly.com. That's great photo books. Photo, or you take them over to Costco, get a photo book, put that on the coffee table. Our trip,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just really a nice way to keep those around. I don't know if my kids are going to care. One thing I know for sure, they're not going to care about the 1,000 photos I threw out. So I think my real realization is if you pare it down to just a handful, those really stand out. You're not overwhelming people. You're saying, no, this is the one. Look at these. These are good enough to look at. And even for me, oh, yeah, that is a pretty good photo because it's not surrounded by 20 other photos. It stands out.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think?
Yeah, well, that sounds good. It sounds like you don't have the heart to throw away any in the trash.
I don't. They're my babies. This is the hardest thing about any artistic endeavor, whether you're a writer, a filmmaker, a photographer.
Yeah.
Every one of those is your babies, every word on the page. But a good writer throws away more words than he keeps, right?
Yeah. Well, that's right. I have to get the heart, though, because I don't have any children to pass them on to, so I'll just have to get rid of them and save the best of them.
Even if you do, they don't want them. I can tell you right now, Henry and Abby, my two kids, have I try to show them these pictures. They go, yeah, Dad. Now let's talk about something else. So you don't fantasize that there'll be some fascination in the next generation. It's not the case. They don't care. But I like it's for me, right? And mostly it's for the future me. This is what I finally realized. It's in a year or two or 5 or 10. So I can look back at this trip and go, yeah, we had a great time. See that? Wasn't that beautiful? That's what that's for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think I'm setting up my final residence. So I'm going to just set up a little museum. And
there you go.
Things.
There you go. And it'll be fun for you, I think, to go back through these memories.
Yeah.
And you won't want to move as fast, will you? Because you want to relish each photo and each memory.
Well, fast is necessary because I have an awful lot of other things to do. But I want to do them with someone else. Right now, I don't have anybody
we'll get
personally with me, so I want to get somebody to show them to for the last time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I bet you there's somebody who wants to see Gary's photos. What's your favorite? What's your favorite thing to take pictures of? What do you think your best pictures are going to be of?
Well, I don't have many more to take. I have lots of them to review, but I've taken a lot of photos of boats.
There you go.
And things. I was in the Navy at the time of Vietnam, so I was everywhere.
You'll have some very important
in the Far East.
Yeah, you'll have historic pictures.
I know, and I've tried to find somebody who's interested in the story of the ones in Japan and Taiwan and Singapore and those places. But
what if you did this?
Don't know what to do with them.
What if when you find those 10 or 15 or 100 pictures that you really think are good, you wrote a little paragraph with each one about where you were, what you were doing, what the scene was like? Then you've got a book.
Yeah,
I mean, a book you could publish.
I brought home a tour book of the whole area, so I could relate the tour book to the photos at that time.
There you go.
So that brings up another thing which I hadn't called about. Can I make a library of some things and send them to you to add to your library?
Sure. I'd love. You know what, Gary? Yeah. Share them with me. I'd love to see them.
Oh, okay.
And I'll show them on the air, because we do a live video stream along with the radio show, and anybody's watching the live video stream. How about that, Gary? Send me. Don't send me 1,000. Send me. Here's your assignment: 20 of your best.
20 of the best. Okay.
And I'd love to hear the story with each one. How's that sound?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Share them with me. I'd love to see.
Very important.
I'd love to see
thing to do.
And thank you for your service in Vietnam.
Oh, you're welcome.
That was a generation that really sacrificed.
Yeah.
Did you hear that one? No. So Gary is an older fella who we were talking with Chris Marquardt as 1 hour, 1,000 photos. What you do and what I did for the first time ever. Right. And I thanked Chris. I said, it really worked. I buckled down, and it really helps. But Gary said, no, I don't have anybody, and I don't have any kids. Nobody wants to see my pictures. I was in Vietnam. I have lots of pictures of, I was in the Navy.
Set up a blog.
Oh, I should have said set up a blog. That's a great idea. What was I thinking? He said, can I send them to you? I said, yeah, send me your 20 best with a story, and I'll show them on the air. That's a good point. That's a good point. A blog would be really a good idea. Living in a boogie wonderland. With Dick DeBartolo, Mad's maddest writer. Normally, Dick joins us each week to talk about gizmos. We call him our gizwiz at gizwiz.biz. But when I saw the news earlier this week that Mad Magazine would cease publication, I thought of you immediately, Dick. And now I guess what they're saying is they're going to keep publishing best ofs.
Yes. So, and the funny thing is, there is really no communication between what goes on in LA and us, the writers and the artists. And July 3rd, I called to ask about the piece I was writing for Mad 10. And the person on the phone said, didn't anybody tell you? And I said,
my God.
I said, tell me what? That more than half the staff was let go last week? I said, what?
That's how you found out, huh?
That's how I found out. That's how well, I spoke to Al Jaffe today doing the fold-in, and I said, Al, did you ever think you and I would outlive Mad Magazine? And he said, Dick, when I picked up the New York Times today and saw that, I said, Al, no one told you either? And he said,
how
no.
dare they not tell you and Al Jaffe, of all the people in the world?
It is
Al is in his 90s, right?
Al is 97, I believe.
97. He's been doing that fold-out for decades.
Decades.
You've been doing their parodies and their joke ads for decades.
Oh, you know what? There's a thing on Mad Cover Site. A guy, his name is Michael Slaybar, who makes these incredible lists. And so I looked it up last night. I have been in every issue for 53 years.
Wow.
And writing for Mad for 56 years. I started in high school, so it is a long time writing for Mad. The only thing that actually it almost brought me to bigger tears than when I learned Mad was closing was what people are posting online of what Mad meant to them. It's mind-boggling what the love that people have for Mad. Everybody from people like Jerry Seinfeld and Lin-Manuel and to the people who said, I hated school, I hated my parents, I just look forward to reading Mad.
So if you want someone to blame for this, blame, guess who? Our favorite whipping boy.
Who's that going to be?
AT&T.
Yeah.
AT&T recently bought Time Warner, right?
Correct.
Which owns DC, the comic book company, which bought Mad some time ago. It was how long ago that DC closed Mad's New York offices?
They closed it in December 2017.
That was iconic. You were on Madison Avenue. I remember taking my daughter, who was about 12 at the time, to visit your offices and to see the original artwork of Don Martin and Antonio Prohias, who did Spy versus Spy, and of course, Al Jaffe. And it was, for me, a pilgrimage to one of the most important things in my youth. And of course, knowing you has been a great treasure because you're one of my heroes. You're a name that echoes in my brain going way back to the 70s.
Well, don't blame me for that. No, I'm proud to be a friend of yours. I just, being associated with Mad has been an incredible experience. I could say I work for ABC News and people, so what? And I write for Mad Magazine. You write for Mad Magazine?
Of course. It's legendary. And everybody of my era grew up. Mad taught us our sense of humor. We grew up with Mad Magazine. It taught us what was funny. It taught us about satire and parody. And there's a beautiful piece I recommend in the Washington Post. It's the #1 most read opinion piece right now. David Vondrell, Mad Magazine's demise is part of the ending of a world. And it is. And is it because it's a print magazine? Is that why you think?
I think it's partly print. I think it's partly that, we were the only people that was years ago saying, the government makes up a lot of stuff. Car companies.
Now, that observation is so, in fact, that's exactly what Vondrell says. We now live in a time where everybody's a spitballer from the president on down. America elected the world's oldest 7th grader in 2016. And so today,
great.
Whether we're doing history or current events, commerce or religion, we're awash in iconoclasm, but nearly bereft of icons. Everyone's a court jester now, he wrote, eager to expose the foibles of kings and queens. But the joke's on us because we no longer have authority figures to keep in check. We're needling balloons that have already gone limp.
No, that's excellent. That is
how can you
excellent.
write satire and parody in an era like this? But yeah, we need it.
Muddled through.
We need it.
That's what a lot of people also are emailing or writing me, is that if we need satire so much right now, even though Washington is producing more satire
it's fertile
per
territory.
hour.
It's fertile territory.
Than we produced in a year.
Did the internet kill Mad Magazine? Tell me that ain't so.
Boy, I don't think so. I think the fact is that what came out of Mad Magazine, satire, like Saturday Night Live and so many people doing satire, it certainly diluted it. You didn't have to look far to find satire. So we can live in the past. What I loved about Mad is that Gaines always. We were sitting down one day and I said, Bill, I'm writing a thing about Mad and I need a quote about your philosophy. And he sat for a minute and he goes, my philosophy. He said, Mad's philosophy is never, ever stop reminding the reader what little value they get for their money. And I thought, that is perfect.
That was the Mad attitude, right?
Yes,
there
yes.
Yeah, the usual gang of idiots, and this is one of them. Yeah,
exactly.
Dick, is there any? Have you been talking to anybody? John Ficarra, the former editor, Al, anybody about what might be the next steps? There's got to be some way to preserve this.
The thing is, it's very difficult, and you nailed it when you said AT&T. You have so many companies now and so many executives involved in making. Yeah, I know. That's why Mad succeeded. Bill was the person. No matter what you needed, Bill told you. I mean, when they took over DC Comics, and I would call up and say, I'm running the AOL Mad thing, and they changed the password or something. Who should I call? And they would go, let me see. Let me call you tomorrow. And then they call back and they said, we have no idea.
No one.
We
It's
know
too
it's
big
somebody.
a company. It's somebody on the 80th floor. We don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So that was, I think, the beginning of the end when Bill died, they came over and they said, this office looks like a high school newspaper, which we thought was great.
Yeah.
Yes. And they said, Bill put a wall between you and the corporate world. He's dead. The wall is coming down.
Oh, that's a bad sign.
This is our opening introduction.
Welcome
to our new bosses.
And of course, it went from bad to worse. And I can't imagine a worse company to hold any media conglomerate. AT&T, the devil, and I'll say it again, the devil. Dick, if people should follow you on Twitter, his Twitter handle is TheGizWiz, TheGizWiz. Your website, gizwiz.biz. Dick's going to stay on this show. He ain't going anywhere till AT&T buys us. But until then, you got a home. I love you, Dick. Thank you. And I'm so sorry this happened.
Thank you so much for all your thoughts.
Thanks to Big Pee-wee, our musical director, Kim Schaffer, for answering the phones. Thanks to you for joining me. We'll be back next time. I hope you will too. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Oh, Dick.
Yeah, don't become a corporation.
Oh, man, AT&T sucks so bad. They're going to ruin HBO. They're going to ruin everything, I swear to God. Ugh.
Yeah, they have I'm sure they don't know who Al Jaffe is or probably who Mad is.
It's some guy in a suit on the 50th floor who says, what's this line item? Well, we can get rid of that. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, exactly.
We're paying what for rent? The writing was on the wall when they moved out of New York because there's no Mad Magazine.
No, I think so because there's a sensibility in New York that Mad needed.
Yes. And Mad was very New York. And in fact, honestly, that's the culture that formed who I am. That was the culture I grew up with. So it's very sad to me. It's an end of an era. I'm devastated. So,
well. I appreciate your time and your help and your thoughts. You've been very
you're going to stay on this show, and we're going to rag on AT&T every chance we get. Damn, those guys suck.
Yeah, tell the ad department, don't book any AT&T ads.
I wouldn't do an ad for AT&T if you paid me, even if you paid me.
Oh, even if they paid.
Even if you paid. Ann on the line from Georgia. Hi, Ann.
Hey, good afternoon, sir. I got a question. It's about sending emails. For several years, I've had an email address. Now, my husband helped me set it up.
Okay.
And then now, just so you understand what's going on, he sat beside me and walked me through. I used, from my email address, he told me to send him an email so he could show me how easy it is.
Yeah.
And he watched me.
Yeah.
I did everything right. My email to him did not come through. So he said, get up, let's switch chairs. And then from my email address, he sent himself an email, and it went through. So then he said, let's switch back. Same thing.
I do this to my wife all the time. It drives her nuts.
And 3 of our adult kids have tried it with me, too. And for some reason, my emails do not go through.
When he's sending, okay, so it works with him, but is he using everything the same as you are, your email client, and all of that?
Yeah, okay, for example.
Is he a magician? Is he trying to trick you? No.
No, and and also with 3 of our adult kids. For example, just for an example, say my email address is my dog has fleas.
Yes.
Okay. My husband and our 3 adult kids, they used my email address just to show me how easy it is.
Yeah.
With me, it never works. With them, it works. And, you know, the big computer that sits on your computer desk that you cannot lug around?
Yeah.
If I sit down and all I do is touch the keyboard, the screen turns blue with letters and numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Then it goes, and it doesn't. Everybody's computers I try to use.
It's a very common syndrome. We call it COS, computer malapparatus syndrome. It means you're not allowed to use computers. You can't use them. There's something. It's like static electricity in your fingers that whenever you touch a computer, it just malfunctions.
Okay, I was told by somebody on my side of the family to try using rubber gloves. And
No. We're all teasing you. No, it's not rubber gloves. Do you have a lot of static? Where in Georgia are you?
Jackson County.
It's not dry there, right? It's pretty humid.
Yeah.
So you don't like touch your dog's nose and it goes, "Zow!" No. You don't get static shocks a lot, do you? Do you slide your feet along the carpet and then you touch a doorknob? No.
No.
Because that is bad for computers.
Even when I was at work, the computers would do the same thing.
What?
And everybody, even, this is a joke, but my family, if I walk in their door and if I, even go anywhere near their computer, not wanting to use, just pass by, they've got guard dogs there.
Whatever you do, Ann, do not touch my computer. So you will sit down at a computer, you will put your hands on the keys, and it will blue screen immediately.
Yes, sir, and then go black. Even my, let me look at what it's called, the iPad.
It does that? What happens then?
Even these will act up.
Even the iPad.
Yep.
How will it act up?
The screen. If I'm reading, for example, I like to read. When I'm reading, and I go to touch, so the page will turn.
Yeah,
it just shuts off. And my husband,
it just shuts off, like goes black.
Yeah, and my husband, he likes to bring his. I call them black boxes. Anyway, he'll bring it because he wants me to see what preaching was that morning, and I can't see because I'm legally blind. So I go to hold it, and I've not touched no buttons. I just hold it, and his goes off.
You break his too?
Yeah.
What the
heck? I don't break it, but it just goes bonkers. I cannot, since 2005, when they set up my emails never go through. But when my husband sits down and uses my email address, it goes through. Our kids, it goes through. Me, forget it. my all computerized thing is giggle at me, and I just want to. So is it physically possible, the way the Lord creates some people, that there's some kind of interference?
Well, you might be the first I've ever heard of. I know a lot of people feel like this, like, well, man, I'm just not good at computers. Every time I try to use them, it just doesn't work and it breaks. But you're the first person I've ever heard of who could touch a computer and it will immediately crash. That's a unique and powerful skill. But I honestly, in order to really diagnose this, we're going to have to send a scientific team with instruments over to observe this, because...
Well, at work, I had to write down, we had to put in the vitals of the residents and patients, and they, real quick, were telling me, just write it down. And
they won't let you touch a computer at work.
No.
Does it happen every single time?
Yes.
Consider, if you will, a young woman from Georgia.
Is it the way the Lord made some of us?
Lord made you. Well, you're the first I've ever heard of. I've heard of people who had trouble with computers, but I never heard of anybody who could. I'll tell you what, the military would love to meet you. We'd send you to North Korea and give you a tour of the nuclear bases and say, we'd like you to meet Ann. She is our secret weapon.
That's one thing that people learn real quick about me. I have never had high blood pressure, but I caused it in other people.
I'm not surprised. If you come in and you touch all my computers and they all blue screen, my blood pressure go through the roof too. Wow, Wendy. Wow.
People wanting me to bow down and do what they demand.
Do you have any medical devices or appliances in your body, a pacemaker, a steel hip, anything like that?
No, sir.
Okay, well, I just want to say one thing. Never come to our studio. And I've never heard of such a thing. I don't know how to fix it because I just don't know what's going on. You can get... bracelets, grounding bracelets. The problem is they only work when they're attached to a cold water pipe or a ground in your building. But it might be something to try. Any electronics store or computer store, the technicians wear them when they work on computers. It's a little electrically conductive bracelet that has a small wire with an alligator clip on the end. They clip it to something that will draw charges off. And if you have a lot of, it's for static. If you somehow, have an electrical field around you, that might help to take it off and send it down that cold water pipe. Maybe you could then use a computer. Can I also say, do you fly airplanes? Because I wouldn't go up in the plane with you. Okay, good.
No.
Yeah.
My husband, we were in a electronics store.
Yeah.
And he was nice. The man was nice. He was trying to show me, and
he just broke everything.
He handed it to me, and it just went.
This is a useful power if you could just harness it. I don't know how we can use this, but all I can say is I am thrilled you called, Ann. I'm sorry about your troubles. I have no fix for you at all, but I would suggest a call to your nearest Army base, because I bet you they could find a use for this. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Thank you, Ann. Wow. She sounded completely sincere. I just don't know what it could be. John says I have to wear the same thing every weekend so that next year's best ofs won't look so strange. I hope you've enjoyed our best of 2019. I'll tell you, I love doing the Tech Guy Show because I get to talk to real people about what it's like to use technology in the real world. It keeps my feet on the ground and helps me understand better how people use technology. So thank you for listening. Thank you for calling in if you called in. And I hope to see you in 2020. We're going to have a lot more fun on the Tech Guy Show. I'm Leo Laporte, wishing you happy holidays and a very happy new year. We'll see you in 2020. Well, that's it for the Tech Guy Show for today. Thank you so much for being here. And don't forget, TWIT, T-W-I-T. It stands for This Week in Tech, and you'll find it at twit.tv, including the podcasts for this show. We talk about Windows on Windows Weekly, Macintosh on MacBreak Weekly, iPads, iPhones, Apple Watches on iOS Today, security on Security Now. I mean, I can go on and on and on. And, of course, the big show every Sunday afternoon, This Week in Tech. You'll find it all at twit.tv. And I'll be back next week with another great Tech Guys show. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time.